Thanks for all, guys. Today with me, I've got my panel as usual. Sean, my co-host, Kevin in the middle, and then Amanda on the very end.
Hello.
Today's topic, we're going to be talking about battalions in Age of Sigmar. We know that Age of Sigmar 2.0 is coming out relatively future, but we've adjusted the questions to account for that. So, jumping into the community segment, this is going to be the standard moving forward. We're not doing any changes in the near future anyway. And we're going to start with Sean. What was your community find that inspired you for this week?
So my community find was I'm in the Age of Sigmar Grots group, and James Critchley, across the pond, we're in the US, I'm pretty sure he's in the UK, he painted up these really cool, the Grot Moon Clan Squig Riders, and they're going to be photoed here.
They should be right here.
Yeah. And they're really neat because he painted all the different squigs in different colors, and I hadn't seen really any lately painted up, but people are starting to get hyped that there could potentially be a Moon Clan book, which would be awesome. So good job.
Yay.
They look
Kevin,
great.
what was your inspiration for the week?
So I was trolling around Instagram as I usually do instead of painting and doing my stuff. And my plug for this week is Jonathan Chokran, or Chokran. I'm sorry if I butcher your name.
His name is also right there.
But it was a super cool converted Great Unclean one. He had taken the bulbs off of the Nurgle tree and fabricated a shield out of plastic card and stuck the bulbs onto it, and used green stuff, and I don't know what he did for the handle, but he made a halberd out of the sword, the massive bile sword that he
Pretty
get.
sweet.
So it was pretty cool, and then he converted the horns to have a bunch growing out of the head. Again, you can see a picture right there, or right there.
It's literally right there.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's my plug for the week.
Yep. All right, Amanda?
So I found, everything that Richard Gray does is amazing, but in particular, I was really impressed with his Watcher this week. That's from the Kingdom Death line. It's in the core box, and just the OSL on it was really, really pretty. It's kind of like, I don't know, like saturated almost. It's like very bright OSL, and then I really liked the purple tones that were pulled into the browns on the cloak. So that was my inspiration for the week.
All right, fantastic. Our next community segment in general, we actually have a army list that somebody submitted to us on the YouTube channel. Feel free to do that. Also, if you're watching this video, comment down below your army list and we'll try to get it reviewed in a future video. But this army list is for Idoneth Deepkins, so Sean's got the leg up on everybody.
Oh, yep. Here, I gotcha. There you go, sir.
As far as the list building goes, but the list is as follows. We've got a Lore Master as an ally. We've got the Isheron Tidecaster, who is the general. We have an Isheron Soul Scryer. We have an Isheron Priest and Volturnus, High King of the Deep. And we also have an Aspect of the Sea Eidolon, 2 units of 20 Namarti Thralls, a unit of 10 Namarti Reavers, and then 2 units of 3 Isheron Guard. Right there. Achillean Isheron Guard. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so Sean, give us a brief rundown of your opinions on the list. We're going to try to do this quick while still covering as much as possible, so I've asked everybody to pick out certain things in the army list that is attractive to them to review, so hopefully everybody's got to touch on something a little bit differently, and Sean, go ahead and take it away.
Cool. So I'll just start out quick for anyone that's not familiar. The enclave that he has chosen is Fwathan, which basically you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for Fwathan units during Flood Tide ability and Tides of Death. And the creatures in the combat phase reroll 1s to wounds, so that's pretty cool for the mount. The list, I don't think necessarily goes fantastic with the Fwathan Enclave, but with the Ishlian Guard, that would be really where it shines. I'll talk about 20-man Thrall units because I love Thralls in the new book. Morphan is normally what I run with 20 Thralls, but in this instance, to get your battle line, 20 is good because if you're not bringing a Soul Render to heal them, they're going to last a little bit longer, which is good, and they can take more hits. Overall, I also think the Lore Master allied in is fantastic. His ability is really good. I'll let somebody else talk about that if they want to, and then
So we'll just jump.
So what stood out to me in this list was the Lore Master. Obviously, I am not the Deepkin expert here, but I thought that the Lore Master was really cool. He's 100 points, and he gives you a wizard for your army, and then he has 2 attacks, but that's not really what makes him exciting. He has a specific spell he can use called the Hand of Glory. It casts on a 5, and it'll let you reroll hits and wounds for a specific model. So I thought that would be really nice tied in with Mathlin, the aspect of the sea, since he gets the D3 shooting and then 6 melee attacks and then also 2d6 melee attacks. Like that's a
right. And Hand of Glory applies to all attacks, so it's both melee
exactly.
and shooting for the whole
So I thought that would be a pretty nice combo, being able to reroll all your hits and wounds for that. Just make sure you get the most out of him.
Just checking something real quick. I actually wrote down the profile on my thing.
And then I was also thinking, because he's such a cheap lore master, I'm going to tie everything back to Sylvanas, but 100 points in the Gnarl Wargrove, I just thought that he might be really good, especially throw that on like Durthu and hit everything, make him a absolute brick house. Yep.
All right, Kevin.
So the unit I reviewed was Thralls. They're 140 points for 10. They're a really good battle line unit. I actually picked up some for my Daughters of Cain, and I'm going to ally them in. They move 6, so they're a little bit on the faster side. 1 wound each with a 5-up save, which is alright. But what really caught my eye was the sweeping blows. And you get to add 1 attack if all the attacks are made against 1 wound models. And you get to add 1 to the damage if all attacks are against a 4 wound or more model, which is pretty devastating. They get 2 attacks, 3 if they're attacking with 1 wound models, and 3s and 3s with a -1 rend, and 1 damage, 2 if they're attacking against a model with 4 or more wounds. So one of the stronger hitting battle line units I was thinking. And that's pretty much what I reviewed.
Okay, great. Yeah, the only thing is, Sean touched on it very briefly during his quick review, is I don't think the Coven, or whatever they're called, Enclave is the right one. You should be looking into the Nutali, Nutella.
I am not.
The Nutella version.
Page 100.
Yep. Being able to reroll your failed hit rolls on the same turn that you charge with the aspect with the High King and the 2 units of Eel Riders. Being able to reroll army-wide for free is...
It's if the target made a charge roll, so they're defending. It's if they get charged, they get the buff. It's still really good. I still think it's one of the best. If the target made a charge move in the same turn.
Yeah.
So and to go off of that, I still think it's really good too, especially if you're playing them a little bit defensively. And when you have 20-man Thrall units, I think you should, because that first turn you get cover, and then that if you kind of position them or go second first turn, even if you don't go first that second turn, if you are charged, you're still re-rolling your failed hits, right? Is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't want to point fingers then, but somebody used the army wrong. Not you. Somebody used the army wrong because they were playing that you charge and you get to re-roll hit rolls of 1. So yeah, that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
Good target. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
That's
I will
why you're
send
not
him a
allowed to use
message.
a new Battletome the first
But
weekend.
Digressing,
Yep.
I like the list. I think it's good. I think when you commented, you were mentioning that you're coming from 40K.
Yes.
And we're looking into buying this army. I would wait another month before you assemble anything or buy anything, especially since Deepkin are on the pricey side of Sigmar armies, for second edition to come out, and then see where it goes from there.
Sure, because
Yeah,
I
there
don't
will
think
probably be points adjustments.
I don't think there's
No.
going to be any points adjustments or any War Scroll changes to the army list, but the missions might change. So that might dictate changing what units are good. Because right now in General's Handbook, it's very objective based. You need to be able to sit on objectives. You need heroes to hold objectives. You need multiple or many model count units to hold objectives. And that might change in the next General's Handbook. So that would be my only caution as far as the army goes. Since it is the new binding, it's the new logo, I don't think we're going to see any changes to the book, but the actual meta might shift where speed might be really good versus having a ton of bodies on objectives. So something to watch out for.
Yep.
Anything else? Good? No?
Nope, we're good.
All right, so we'll just go ahead and jump right into the RTD discussion, which this week, as I mentioned it before, is going to be focusing on whether battalions are worth taking currently in Age of Sigmar, and then the last question we'll be talking about Age of Sigmar 2. Since we don't know what it is yet, it's going to be more of a prediction, but we'll cover that when we get to it. So currently in Age of Sigmar, this video will be outdated incredibly quickly, but give us one battalion that you think is absolutely worth its points cost and why it stands out to you, and give us one battalion that's not worth its point cost and why that one stands out to you. And we're going to start with Kevin.
So the one that I chose was the Shadow Patrol from Daughters of Cain.
For which one?
Worth for the one that's totally worth it.
Okay.
It's 120 points, and the units are 4 Canary Harpies and 2 units of Doomfire Warblocks. And in the hero phase, or in the move phase, one unit can move anywhere if it's not within 3 inches of an enemy or enemy unit to anywhere on the battlefield that's not within 9 inches of another enemy unit. So it's really quick to, if let's say you wanted to take an objective first turn, one unit's right there instantly. It does count as their move, and they can't move in that turn again, but I think that was totally worth it.
So the mobility of the battalion is why you think it's worth it?
Yes.
Okay.
I really disliked from the Bone Splitters book the Snaggerrock, and I couldn't find the points on it, but I really dislike it. It allows you to charge one unit of Warboys in the hero phase, like it's the charge phase, but you have the ability. It allows you to re-roll. It allows you to re-roll your charge roll too, but you have the ability to hurt yourself. You have the ability to on I think it's ones. On ones, you have the ability to deal mortal wounds to yourself. And I just don't feel like it would be worth it to take that because, just for the mortal wounds aspect alone, I roll a lot of ones, so.
Not when you play Nurgle.
The Snagruck is 140 points.
It's 140, yeah, so it's totally not worth it to me.
Okay. Sean?
Being the Deepkin player, I chose the Namarti Corps, and it doesn't help that these new books are pointed more efficiently, I think, than the previous Battletomes. But the Namarti Corps, when you bring units back, or slain models back, with the Soul Render ability, you get to count the roll that you roll as a 3. And it requires 2 units of Thralls and 2 units of Reavers. It's 100 points, so it's not that points intensive. It's 5% of your 2K list, so that's not too bad. And for negative battalions, I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on any of the battalions that are that I'll call multi-battalions, where there's 1 or 2 battalions in a major one. And in almost all cases, they're too expensive to even bring in the normal 2K game. For example, the Stormcast, not chambers, but hosts, I believe before all of these books where you got free enclaves or Skyports, they required you to take units and battalions, and in that case you have to pay twice, once for the battalion in it and once for the chamber that they're from. So I think they're all 2 points intensive and should be changed.
Okay.
All right. So my battalion, these will all be Sylvaneth battalions. The one that I think is totally worth it is the Gnarlroot Wargrove. It's 180 points, and it upgrades your Tree Lord to a Tree Lord Ancient. You have to take one of those because you also need a Household battalion within it. But you get another spell. So you'll be able to do 2 spells, casting and then unraveling per turn. And then it also gives you another spell that so you'll be able to know 3 spells out of the Deepwood lore, basically, which I think is really good. And the spell that it gives you as part of the battalion, you're able to bring back, heal wounded models.
Okay.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
In addition, it also lets you take an Order Wizard, which, I mean, you could do like the Sisters of the Thorn, or even the Lore Master like we just discussed. So I think there are some cool options there, and the big thing with that is that it won't count as an ally. It's already pointed into the battalion. So if we're playing for that, be the 10 points, and it requires you to run at minimum 2 Tree Lord Ancients and a Tree Lord. The only bonus that you get is you could potentially do D3 mortal wounds in the hero phase, which is not that much, I don't think, for the 110 cost for the battalion, plus the 3, 6, 900 something points you're going to spend on Tree Lords.
Okay, so your pro was access to allies without paying ally points.
Yep.
Your cons are
Just expensive model costs to run.
okay,
It's prohibitive.
so unnecessary. And then Sean, we already talked about Kevin's pros and cons being mobility.
Yep.
And what was your pros cons for the
The pro is Namarti Core. Most of the models in it that you're bringing, you're going to have in the list already, and that you're healing more guys back. And then the con was any of the battalions that include battalions in themselves, and then you have to pay for both of them.
Right. Okay. My pro con is we're gonna go over real quick, just to throw it out there because I have a couple of things that nobody touched on. My pro would be the first cohort from the Legions Nagash book. And the reason why it's a pro and why it's really good is it's a super cheap battalion to start off with, but it's also, as Sean says, it has things that you want in your army already, as well as it has huge flexibility in the units that you can bring, because it requires you to bring Nagash 9 times out of 10, as far as I'm concerned, you're bringing Nagash in your army anyway. A unit of Mortarks that gain the ability to take wounds for Nagash, so you're giving Nagash 12 extra wounds, and then 3 units of Skeleton Warriors, Graveguards, or Black Knights. So Skeleton Warriors being dirt cheap, I think they're 10 for 80, and by I think I mean they're 10 for 80. You get to fill in the battalion super fast. It has benefits that directly tie into the things that you want to be doing in a death army, and you get to have a 1-drop potential army with it. So, or you cut your drops by half, basically. So the ability to deploy in 1 drop is something that nobody touched on, and it's a huge benefit for battalions. I know.
I'll actually get back to that.
Okay, because I know almost everybody on the panel says that battalions are overcosted, and I still firmly believe that battalions are, if not underpointed for what they do, because being able to drop 1 unit down and go first or dictate who goes first is just such a powerful ability in and of itself. And then the con for a battalion would be a perfect example of the Waystone Wanderers from the Wanderers army, because you need to have 6 heroes and 2 units that are overcosted and don't actually do anything in the form of Wild Riders or Sisters of the Thorn 1 unit, I can make an argument for, but having to take 2 is just way too high of a cost. So you're paying for things you don't necessarily want to bring in the army to field a battalion. That's 240 points. So you're dumpstering like close to 800 points in units and the cost of the battalion, and getting very little back from it when the allegiance abilities and the command traits that you can give your general basically do what the battalion does already. Sean, you had something to add?
No, in a later question. I'll talk about
okay.
it. And for any, did you mention what Lore Master does?
Yeah, he has the Hand
His
of
spell.
Glory.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. And just to touch on what John said, the army that I run is a 1-drop, and it's fantastic. Like, that can't be discounted.
There's trades-offs, because if you are deploying first or second and you have a 1-drop army, your opponent gets to pick the battles because they know where everything is.
Yeah.
So playing an army that's a 1-drop and has deployment shenanigans is really, really strong. But just being out, like, you are going to be out deployed, but then being able to dictate who gets the turn, and without seize the initiative in this game, thank God. That by itself is just powerful enough that in AOS 2, I don't think we're going to see major point reductions in battalions. That's it. Good. Moving on.
So,
Next question. All right. So question number 2 is based on your questions, or based on your answers to question 1. What changes to battalions would make you more inclined to taking them when building a tournament list? If you think the battalions are good the way that they are, like I do, what are some ramifications that the other panel members' choices would inflict on the game? So we're going to start with Sean.
Okay. So I said we kind of touched upon it, reducing the cost down a little bit, because I think they went from being too cheap to too expensive, but changing the way battalions work in that you don't get to drop them all at once. So I think it's definitely worth paying the points to get the special rules, and really for me, the theme that it adds to your army specifically. I know we're kind of starting to get into the theme of your army based off of enclaves and skyports, but before those started really being prevalent, I think the major thing that changed the theme, so to speak, of your chosen faction is the different battalions that you could take. So I would say reduce costs, but change it so that it's not 1-drop now, which changes a lot of the strategy at events, and just be more that you're just paying for the special rules.
Okay, great. Amanda.
So I'm going to touch on what Sean said really quick, because I think that in a lot of cases the special rules are kind of underwhelming. So I don't necessarily, I wouldn't want to pay for that. It depends on the special rule. But I think that he also hit on the mark with the points where before they were a little low, now they're a little high. I think hitting back to the sweet spot. And then I would also like you, with your Legions of Nagash one, the battalion that you just said, having that broad range of models you can pick from is really nice, because a lot of the Sylvaneth battalions, they lock you into taking Tree Revenants, my most hated unit. So I think that having a little bit of wiggle room in the required models you take would be nice. I mean, I also understand that that's then a penalty that you're paying in addition to the battalion cost, so I mean, you'd have to balance it a little bit.
Yep. All right, Kevin.
And I was actually going to say the special traits that the battalion gets. Like I said before with the Snaggerrock, it's only 1 unit charging. And you have the ability to do damage to yourself, whereas like something like the Shadowhammer Compact, you get to choose 2 units and they both get to do the same thing, and the battalion's 80 points. It's, you get to either shoot, charge, move, all in the hero phase, and it's 80 points versus 140 for 1 unit. So I wouldn't say change the specials, but I would kind of balance them out a little bit. Like I said, that some battalions just feel so underpowered, underwhelming, and others just seem amazing, for the points cost.
I think that's also a little bit, all the newer books, I think, have a little bit more punch in their battalions, whereas some of the older Sigmar books are kind of a little bit lackluster with maybe the abilities. So we might see a revamp with that, maybe the Journal's Handbook 2,
Maybe.
3, whatever number we're on now.
3.
Yeah, it's tough because battalions, I think a lot of the game design, and we talked about this a little bit with the painting episode last week, I think the game is designed for a narrative mentality, even though there's a competitive side to it, because the battalions are very much flavor.
Yeah.
They give you rules, but they're also, in the universe, they make sense. So it's a fine line to walk between, do you just want cutthroat battalions, or do you want to have the forge the narrative battalions too?
Yeah.
Because there in every book there is this battalion is the best battalion, and this battalion is never going to see competitive play. But for open play, narrative play, I'd like to start getting some campaign missions going for the channel as far as battle reports go, and having those battalions have access in the game. I think they're really good. So, Amanda, you talked about just points reductions and flexibility in the battalions. I'm going to touch on that real quick. You already mentioned it, that the units are already part of the tax. So your Sylvaneth battalion is how many points base?
The one that I'm running right now is 160.
160, and then a unit of tree revenants is how many?
2 units of tree revenants at 160 for both.
So you're getting a 320 point tax on top of that. Your battalion is basically 500 points.
In addition to everything else that needs to be in it in order to run it. Yeah, because I also have to take a tree lord and some other stuff.
But you're going to be taking a tree lord probably.
I would not take a tree lord. I would take a tree lord ancient, but I am forced to take a tree lord in this one. I would swap it out for Durthu or a tree lord ancient.
And it's specifically a tree lord, it's not bold. It's like,
it is specifically a tree lord, not a tree lord ancient.
Yeah, so the Wanderers one again is another example of that, having the ability to come on from any table edge and being a 1-drop army and being able to shoot twice, once in the hero phase, once in the shooting phase, but you've got almost 1,000 point tax on that battalion. So
yeah, 1,000 points seems steep for that.
Yeah, because it is good, but the
1,000 points of required units without being able to pick other stuff is
240 points for the battalion, 220 for each unit of Sisters of the Thorn that you're bringing. You don't get access to allies with this battalion because bare bones this battalion fills up your entire points allowance, so no allies can fit in this army. And then I'm new to Wanderers. I don't see the appeal to the heroes outside of the bare bone minimum hero requirement. Like basically, what's the mission that you have to be sitting on objectives with heroes?
Places of power.
Places of power. My only concern when picking heroes with Wanderers is places of power. If I could get away with one, I'd be happy with it. But yeah, so it's tough. So anybody else have anything to add to battalion?
I'll mention real quick, just because may as well kind of talk about it. Moving forward with the sub-factions that we were calling them last week, where you're basically picking a specific city, state, or faction from your battletome that gives you buffs. I'm not sure with Daughters of Cain, but I know in Deepkin, those enclaves not only give you additional rules, but they also change the structure of battalions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we can kind of talk about that a little bit, but it kind of goes hand in hand with, if you decide you like this playstyle, it's more efficient for you to bring that battalion because it gives you access to more units, or more units that would go with said enclave for Deepkin. Yeah. So the Deepkin book itself, I think, makes taking the different battalions more points efficient, because not only are you bringing what you want to bring, but it's matching up with your army-wide special rule that you're adding in and choosing.
Right, yeah. Because I think that's just recently started with the new books. Pretty sure
I don't think it was-
Nagash and Magickin have it. I think it's Daughters and Deepkin that I've noticed it the most. I could be wrong because I don't play either of those armies currently, but going over the books and trying to remember what's in there, I know for a fact Daughters lets you substitute battalions, adding heroes, Cauldrons of Bloods, and certain units, and I know that the Deepkin also have that option. So that's kind of nice. And then as long as we're just kind of like free talking about this topic, I personally hate soup lists. I hate the Grand Alliance. I know that there's people out there who have begrudgingly moved from squares to rounds, but basically are running old world armies. I hate Grand Alliances, and I would really, really like seeing moving forward battalions, even if they release an entire book of just battalions that have the ally mechanic in it. So Sylvaneth have Dispossessed with the Wargroves, Deepkin have the Deepkin and Sylvaneth allies, Daughters have Daughters and Stormcast built-in battalions that let you get around the points restrictions of allies. So as long as you're taking that battalion, you can have basically a mixed order army and still benefit from your alliance abilities. I'd like to see that going forward. And now that I've said it out
cherry
loud,
picking.
yeah, it's just I don't want to say it breaks the narrative for me, but it's so hard to balance that many units, and we're seeing it in 40k right now, particularly with Imperial just having astronomical more options and better options than say Xenos, who can't ally with anybody.
Well, for anyone that's either only 40k or only Sigmar and tuning in, the equivalent is kind of like Guardsmen and Skinks. Guardsmen are what you're bringing in your soup Imperial lists because they're cheap, just to fill up your troop slot, which is basically battle lines in Sigmar. And Skinks in mixed order armies because they're 10 for 60 points. You just bring, and they're inherently battle lines.
And they're just good across the board. Honestly, Skinks just need to be hit in the face with their but it's a whole other topic. But yeah, we're seeing it. The GT England, London was
GT
this
last
weekend,
week.
and that had just constant complaints about Imperial armies just being able to pick whatever they wanted, essentially.
That
because
the terrain.
well, yeah, but we're not talking about that right now. It's the general idea of being able to pick the best of everything just concerns me, especially with things that don't make sense. Again, trying to separate narrative and tournament play, but why are Namarti thralls in your army? Like Lizardmen, I could find the excuse for because they're basically, realm police. They just show up and help out, but
especially when the fluff, thralls are blind, and the reason they can see their targets is because they can see the Aether Sea around, the way it's affecting their opponents.
But
ally them in, and now they're blind.
But every year, in addition to a general handbook, I know it's an extra book and whatever, but I would really like to see a book of just War Scroll battalions that are mixed armies. That lets you kind of dip into other armies, because that would keep up GW's sales. Like if you make the battalion really attractive, then steam tanks are gonna sell out now because everybody wants to run them in that battalion. Because I firmly believe the only reason why we still have mixed order armies is to keep the butthurt down of old world dying. That's just a protective measure of because we subdivided everything. Like Dark Elves is a great example. Dark Elves is now Darkling Covens, Scourge Privateers, and Daughters of Cain. 3 separate armies, but you could run a mixed order army and just run exactly your old fantasy army. I think one of the reasons why, and the second, probably the bigger reason, is monetarily sales driven from GW, which is, skinks are really good. Every order player is going to go out and buy 100 skinks. So I don't really like that. But if you wanted to run a battalion in your Stormcast army that allies you with Lizardmen, we would probably only ever see that battalion if it was really, really good, but it would stop everybody from taking the best things, I think. So.
I'm a big fan of the mixed battalions.
Yeah.
I do it with the Ironbark Wardrobe. I can take some Fire Slayers and add some punch, but it's still limits you. So you, like you said, you can't be picking and choosing the best. You only get 2 units. So, and you have to, you know,
And
pay your battalion cost tax too.
on top of them, yeah.
Yeah. So I pay I have 430 points of Fire Slayers in my army. And then plus the 160 to run the battalion.
Mm-hmm. Now, was it FAQ'd or an errata that specifically mentions that when you have mixed battalions, they don't go towards your allies' cost because they gain the keyword?
It was,
because that was
it
news
is
to me. That's
somewhere.
what I was going to say.
Yeah, it is somewhere. I've seen it pretty much across the internet. I tried flipping through the General's Handbook. I couldn't find it, so it is probably in an errata somewhere or a community page update something. It might be in General's Handbook. I just couldn't find it. That specifically says if you are building a War Scroll battalion that has mixed allegiance, they all gain the same allegiance keyword for list building only. As soon as they touch the table, they lose it. So,
as the battalion,
right?
Gotcha. So that's why it doesn't have to count towards your allies' cost.
Right. So you could, in theory, run the Deepkin or the Daughters of Cain battalion that lets you ally Stormcast and run a 30-man Liberator unit, which pretty much nobody else can do.
Right, because they're too expensive. Yeah,
Right.
in your allies' points.
Right. Well, if you're taking anything else from Stormcast, I mean, you can fill out that battalion and have a 30-man Liberator unit because you're not pulling from allied pool. So, and then you could, in theory, dip into allies. So, I mean, like mixed battalions let you basically pick 3 factions because you can pull in allies.
Yeah.
So, I like it. I think that I just have a big problem with soup. I don't like it in 40k. I don't like it in Sigmar. So.
And it's interesting because they're trying to stop it in 40k, at least the competitive match play.
Right.
So we'll see if potentially something happens with Sigmar. But
This is basically things are 6 months to 8 months out. I've kind of estimated from GW, and I think that the FAQ for 40k saying that soups are trying to be tethered down a little bit more is going to be implemented in Age of Sigmar, just because they are feeding off of each other. Anything else to add real quick before we go into the last question? Okay. So, last question. We are going to talk about now, with all of the spoilers that we've been getting from the Warhammer community page, we know that command points are directly related to battalions that you can take. So in Age of Sigmar 2, we know that command points are from battalions. How is this going to influence your opinions on battalions? Keeping in mind that your heroes can only use their command abilities going forward with command points. You do get 1 every turn and 1 for every 50 points you are under, but...
And they don't replenish, though.
Right. Yeah. So there's some pretty hefty restrictions on getting command points. And we know a couple of the command abilities, the 3 basic ones that everybody's going to get that replace Inspiring Presence. So starting with Kevin, how do you think that's going to change your opinion on battalions?
I think a lot of people will start taking more battalions instead of the, like you said, the Grand Order Alliance. I think it's going to make battalions worth it and giving extra command points for, just bringing them. And hopefully, with AOS 2.0 coming, I'd like to see some of the weaker ones get taken as well. I'd like to see everything be taken and people trying to figure out different things and ways to run them.
I mean, while we're on the weaker ones being taken, I'd like to just really quickly address this, even though it has nothing to do with the topic, but I've seen a lot of people complaining online about the nerfs to Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt. And I firmly believe that this was a calculated decision by GW, because if you have a hero, for example, a Spell Singer from Wanderers, its spell ability lets you heal D3 wounds off of a friendly unit within 8 inches or 18 inches range. Why would I ever do that when I could put Mystic Shield on somebody else? Or Arcane Bolt somebody in the face? You gotta tone the power level down of the basic, everybody has them, and we're gonna start seeing people taking wizards that aren't just Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield. They used to be called, in old fantasy, you used to have something called a Dispel Scroll, which is once per game you just stop a spell. and you used to take the cheapest hero in your entire army and put the Dispel Scroll on him, and you were called a Scroll Captain. His only existence in life was to stop one spell once per game. That was it. That was his job. Once he did it, you basically forgot the model was on the table. Basically, every wizard right now that isn't a really, really powerful wizard is a Mystic Bolt, Arcane Shield. I'm not going to use my Lord of Change to cast Mystic Bolt or Arcane Shield because he's got better things to do, but, that Herald of Tzeentch over there, one of the two, right? So we're going to see probably a change in which heroes are coming out. But anyway, going back to the question about battalions, command points. Amanda, what do you think is going to change your influence on battalions?
So previously, my old Sylvaneth list, I ran 3 battalions in it, and now I'm running 2. So I think that depending on how important command points end up being, I would potentially change back. I like the Fire Slayers. They add a little bit of punch and some staying power over a lot of the basic Sylvaneth units, but if command abilities are worth it, then I'll absolutely change to have more battalions.
Okay. Sean?
Did you have anything left to say?
No.
You finished up?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll talk about the question and then we could go back to the things for second edition. I think that it's going to make it 100% necessary to either bring battalion or play points down, and I'll get to that second. So starting off, I think it's command points are pretty big in 40k, and now I think they're going to be even bigger because the 3 main command abilities, they're being called, are Inspiring Presence, which they've changed, At the Double, and Forward to Victory, and I'll just go over those quick. So Inspiring Presence is now that it's at the start of a Battle Shock phase.
Yeah.
And
it's either Battle Shock.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you could put it on during your opponent's turn after they just try to hit a unit really hard. Interesting play around. But, yeah.
Right. So you pick a friendly unit within 6 inches of a hero or 12 inches from a hero that's the general. So they're also making who you pick as your general very important. And that unit does not have to take Battle Shock. The next one's At the Double, which is basically you use the command ability after you make a run roll for a friendly unit that's within 6 inches of a hero or 12 from your general. And they count as rolling a 6, so that's pretty good. And then Forward to Victory, it's after you make a charge roll, again within 6 inches of a friendly hero or 12 inches of a general. A recurring theme there. You can re-roll the charge roll. And each of these will cost command points that you can spend. Now, I don't remember reading, or if they mention it on the community page. I think the general just gets to do, because they're the general, gets to do their command ability. You don't have to cost. Are you sure?
I'm almost 100% sure that it's any hero that uses a command ability aspect.
And is it just that the general generates 1 per turn? Otherwise, that's the only way to get it?
No, you just inherently generate 1
Okay.
per turn, and then every 50 points under, and every battalion gives it to you. But I'm almost 100% sure that the general has to pay a command point to use his command.
Okay. So, again, as John just said, you also get 1 command point per 50 points unspent on units. So they might have to touch on that a little bit. But for me, back to the question, it's going to come down to, is it worth me spending however many points per battalion to get the special rule and 1 command point with it? So, for example, in the Marty Corps is 100 points. I'm going to spend 100 points, get its buff and its command point. Or am I better off playing down 100 points and just getting 2 command points? And I think that's going to be the kind of the balancing decision based off of what else command points can be used for, if anything. The buffs or debuffs from battalions, and how battalions end up being changed points-wise.
And you touched on something, the phrasing on the community page, I mean, it's from the community page, so who knows how it actually will be in the book, specifically says for every 50 points in units that you're under. So, or for every 50 points that your army has less counting units, or however it was phrased.
It specifically said units.
Right.
The points spent
I'm
on
backward.
units.
That's what it is. You add up your points spent on units, and however many you're under the total by 50, you get a command point back. So does that mean that your battalion not only gives you 1 for taking it, but also counts against that? So if you take a 200-point battalion, are you getting
4 command
5
points.
command points? 4 for being under 200 and 1 for being a battalion? Because that
It's pretty
you
big.
keep
Yeah,
you keep battalions the same cost, and that now makes battalions way more valuable.
Right, because it's not 1 per battalion. It would
Right.
become 1
Yeah.
per 50 that the battalion
is worth.
is worth. Yeah.
Yeah, because having your general start the game, say you're exactly 2,000 points or you're above 50 points, you have no battalions, starting the game with 1 command point, and that's a really scary place to be considering how important Inspiring Presence is currently. I've got a 30-man block of anything, and it needs Inspiring Presence if it's going to go fight something. Or like specifically Iron Jaws is what comes to mind, is if you have a big block of brutes at bravery 6 and they kill 4 of your brutes, it'll affect ogres too, but since they don't have a book right now, I don't really consider them something that we need to worry about. But Iron Jaws, bravery 6, lose 4 guys, like that hurts when you're losing 3 wood models. So anything else?
While we're talking about it, after reading it a second time, the fact that it can be any hero or general gives out those buffs, I think is big. Because now I almost want to call it the buddy system, because you have your little 100-point hero or 80-point hero, even if it's a wizard, who cares? They're walking up behind your huge 30-man unit and giving them Inspiring Presence, versus now you need your general to be, over here, now over here. And I think it's going to encourage actually bringing more 100-point heroes, 80-point heroes, 120-point heroes than one big 300-point model.
Yeah. Is like, again, going back to Iron Jaws, is the killing of the Maw Crusher, I know he's getting points reductions currently, is the killing potential of the Maw Crusher worth it when you could be bringing 3 guys on foot and getting all those command abilities off every turn and being in multiple places at the same time, which is a big thing by itself. So Kevin, you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
No? Nothing about battalions giving command abilities that's going to change your opinion of them, really?
No, I still think that people are going to be taking way more battalions, and like I said, like Sean said, you're going to be seeing so much more battalions, and it makes them so much more they're worth. Don't know how to word that sentence, but try as I may.
Their
worth.
perceived value is increasing.
Yes.
Hashtag
Thank you.
value.
All right, Amanda, anything else to add?
No, I don't.
John?
Do you want to keep it going a little bit longer or not?
We've got the outlandish prediction and our plug, so we're getting close to time.
Okay.
So I mean, like, jump on it if you want. If you
I
want
mean,
stuff that-
we could just play devil's advocate and say we're not going to bring battalions
Oh,
because
I was gonna say, yeah, straight up. This is either gonna be a feast or famine. The meta's gonna shift out. Like I said, this is the same with video games. There's gonna be a patch. Everybody's gonna be trying to figure out the patch for the first 2 weeks, 4 weeks. It's gonna be glorious of no net lists. Just play as many games as you possibly can. Try out as many things before somebody breaks the game at the hips, and they find the next change host.
Yeah.
Right? Like, try out everything.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. For anyone that wasn't, the community page and the change host made me think of it, is dispel range is 30 inches now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people were saying you just bring a Lord of Change, and because they changed their highest roll to whatever they roll, and the 30-inch dispel, they can just be wherever they need to be on the table. And nope, gonna stop this, gonna stop that.
They have an ability too that extends their dispel range already.
No,
So
there you go.
In theory, you could just dispel from one corner of the table to the other. Just be like, "Oh, I see you over there. No, bye." Like, So
that would have the potential to make those little scroll caddy guys you were saying better. If that
for
becomes
sure.
a
Yeah,
thing.
taking super cheap wizards.
Yeah.
Just to have the access of multiple dispels.
Yeah.
I think Change Host is dying with this book. Honestly, as long as we're talking about
The
it.
changes.
I hope.
And
Yeah.
battalions.
Pun
because
intended.
Change Host is a battalion, so it kind of slots in like a square in a small round peg. But the general changes to the way that the command abilities work, magic phase works, the 30-inch dispel, the changes to spells in general, I think Change Host is dying, which is a good thing because meta shifts are always good. It's a little bit, it's tough because you want changes in video games like in Counter-Strike. You know, the PNG or whatever is just winning everything. Oh, well, in the next patch, we're reducing the damage by 15. Right? That doesn't cost the players anything. You've already bought the initial cost of the game, and then any changes from there on don't directly impact you financially. Similar to Hearthstone, you know, changes happen. You spend money on cards, but really, compared to wargaming, it's a drop in a bucket. But saying, all right, these changes in Age of Sigmar 2, the Change Host is dead, that's like $1,000 army that you have to now retool. So that kind of sucks, but
300 brimstone orders.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it. Like the people who are trying to model backpacks on their Namarti thralls as quick as possible. Like, like 30 backpacks for my Namarti thralls, and then bam, nerf. You deserved it if you went on eBay and bought those backpacks. The meta shifts are always a good thing, even though financially it's upsetting. You know,
but
for these armies.
I think it also requires you to think outside of the box. I think so often we see people find a way to play an army, and then that's what everyone plays. Like,
that's
Change Host is a perfect example of that. Whereas I think having the meta shift, you're then looking for a different way that maybe you glossed over before, or it didn't seem that good. So I think it really requires you to explore your book a little bit more. And
It changes. And then the final thing, and then we'll get to the last part, only because we mentioned it, so people don't have to go look for it. The change to Mystic Shield now is that it allows you to reroll 1s for your save, and Arcane Bolt is it does 1 mortal wound, or if you cast it on a 10 or higher, it does D3.
Yep. Which is, the Night Haunt Facebook group went bananas when that came out because they're like, oh, it's a shame if somebody took away your +1 armor save and gave it to Night Haunt because they just don't care. Right? Because the new ethereal rule is you can't modify your armor save plus or minus. So Mystic Shield did nothing, and now you get to reroll one. So it's basically a direct buff to Night Haunt. But convenient that they're coming out next.
There it is.
All right, so last part, the unexpected part is the outlandish prediction, and this is going to be give us an example of one of these spoilers that is coming out from the community pages and how it's going to directly influence the meta. Outlandish prediction, however crazy you think it is. So, Amanda, what do you think?
Arcane Bolt. I mean, mortal wounds are the way to deal with things for the most part, and a lot of armies are trying to get as many ways to do mortal wounds as possible. So I think that Arcane Bolt was just, why bother using it? 1 mortal wound? Like, who cares? That's nothing. So I think that, like you said, we're going to see a lot of potentially different spells being used.
Okay. Kevin?
You
want to go to Sean?
Yes,
please.
please.
All right, Sean?
Okay, so we don't know all the details yet of these endless spells, or if they can be duplicated, replicated. The one that we have seen was on the Ironjaw's preview, which basically you cast it, it flies around, and if it passes over, you do mortal wounds. I think if they are things that you can cast one every turn, we are going to see tons of just 100-point wizards that sit in the back, and 1 per turn you go down. For every turn you play in the game, it's okay, next endless spell, next endless spell, next endless spell, and they're all going to just be going all over the board like Pac-Man and dealing out mortal wounds. But again, we don't know all the details, so that's why I consider that out like this.
I don't know. Forecasting, I think magic is going to be the new hotness for this edition of General's Handbook.
I'm going to say that we're actually not going to see very many changes from any of the spoilers because I think all of the realm-specific items, the realm-specific spells, are going to be open and narrative play only. I don't think we're going to see any of them in match play. I think it's going to be just go have fun and have a giant yellow mouth go eat 40% of your opponent's army. It's going to be all
Nighthawk will be really good against that.
Yeah. The teeth just goes over that.
Yeah.
All right.
Or they catch you. Get it? Pac-Man reference? No. Okay, never mind. Moving on, people.
I got where you're putting it.
Okay, there we go.
Inky, Blinky,
Pinky
Clyde.
and Clyde.
Pinky, Clyde. Yep.
Yep.
All right.
My outlet.
And then Clyde Susan in Mrs. Pac-Man, I think. I think they do a gender swap. I don't know.
Probably.
But anyway, all right, Kevin, what's your outmatch prediction?
I'm gonna say Mystic Shield isn't worth taking anymore. They're probably gonna come out with something different as a spell. Because I used to run Mystic Shield on my 30-man block of Plague Bearers, and now re-rolling ones is meh. Instead of giving +1 to my save.
Well, they re-roll ones when they're near a hero, right?
Yeah.
So I mean.
So
that's
it's
kinda-
nothing.
Yeah.
It's lackluster.
What it makes you do is pick wizards who aren't just Mystic Bolt, Arcane Shield,
Yeah.
or Mystic Shield, Arcane Bolt guys.
Yeah.
It's do something specific.
Yeah.
They have their unique ability.
All right,
So I think they should either add another spell that does something totally different,
okay, so
another general spell, or
all right, so your outlandish prediction is they're going to add a third general spell.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be behind that. Anything else? Anybody
Not for me.
anybody want to talk on? No?
Anyone that's following the community page, one of the leaked spells is that you choose an enemy unit. I forget what it casts on. I think it's an 8 or 10 or something.
Banishment?
And, yeah, banishment.
Yeah, I
and
saw that
you
today.
you pick it up and you set it somewhere else that's I think more than 9 inches away from your unit.
The only restriction is more than 9 of your unit and more than 24 from the caster.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it's.
So it's basically just pick it up and go on the other
Yeah.
corner and save it.
And the only complaint I read about it, despite my obvious well that's ridiculous, was that your opponent gets to touch my models.
That's
And I
what
thought
everyone
that
on
was
Twitter was
ridiculous.
complaining
That's
about
crazy.
today.
I was like, how hard is it to look at your opponent and say, I just cast this spell, here's this unit, please move it over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
I remember specifically at an Ardboys GT, somebody who I was playing against, and they were playing Chaos Space Marines, and I remember specifically because his army wasn't very well painted, like I'd say slightly below tabletop, but I went and shot and told him that this unit takes this many wounds, he failed that many armor saves, and because he's on the other side of the table, I was just going to pick up his guys and pass them over to him. And he threw a conniption fit about me touching his stuff. He's like, I worked so hard painting my models, don't touch them. I'm like, all right, pump the brakes, fella. They don't look very good. I mean, like,
Pump the hate brakes.
like
After last week's, I think painted, even if they aren't very well painted,
Sure.
is better than
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
plastic, Amanda.
yes, we
I've
had
been
a,
told to dial back the savagery, and I think I was very polite and nice today.
you were very nice today, but you
Yes.
basically owe an apology to everybody that you called trash. Um,
If you're bringing, you know what? I stand by what I said. If it hurt your feelings, then
well,
maybe
this was the
you-
last show that we'll see Amanda.
I apologize for
The-
being mean.
This is the last week that you get a chance to leave a comment on any of our videos. Feel free to answer the questions of this roundtable or any of the other roundtables. Leave a comment on any of our battle reports to win a free copy of the Idoneth Deepkin book, because the next RTD is when we will be doing the drawing and announcing the winner of this book that will ship to you anywhere in the world. So once that video goes live, feel free to comment and we'll direct message you. We'll get all of your information and we'll get the books shipped out to you.
And that's on any of our videos. So if
Yep.
you want to
Yep.
watch a battle report, I got my hips broken by Kevin yesterday playing Sylvaneth. You can watch that and see my shame.
And
Let's not
It
use
was,
that
it
word.
was pretty bad. It was
yeah,
pretty
It
bad.
was really
it was
bad.
pretty bad. And
Yeah.
we're also moving forward. All of our battle reports are going to be streamed live on Twitch, and I'll actually be putting a video out tomorrow about our monthly or our weekly schedule, so you can more reliably find our content, because right now it's all over the place, and the only thing that's set in stone is the RTDs come out at noon on Saturday Eastern Standard Time. But we'll actually be trying to get stuff out on a regular basis, so you're more easily able to find that, and that goes for live streams on Twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? We good?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, thanks to having our editor Jake in the studio and having our lovely graphics pop up on the screen. And hopefully going forward we'll have a little bit cooler stuff. We've got some stuff in the works as far as upgrading stuff. And hopefully the new lighting in here works really well and doesn't make us all look super pale and reflect off of all of our glasses.
Yeah, if you want to see it, you can check out our Twitter. There's a behind the scenes peek at our studio.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Kevin, you want to sign us off?
Thank you guys for joining us in the 10th realm, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.